one nation, one election.
Here in India, the rumour mills are buzzing. There is talk of one nation, one election.
The government of Prime Minister Narendra Modi has called for a special parliament session.
I was not expecting this.
अरे हमको क्या मिलेगा वन इलेक्शन की 10 इलेक्शन.
ये इम्पॉसिबल है. अगर ऐसा बिल आता है तो ये अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल होगा.
आउटराइट ये कह देना कि एक देश एक चुनाव के हम पक्ष में नहीं है. अरे चर्चा तो करो भाई.
Hi everybody, on 1st of September 2023, a committee headed by the former President Ram Nath Kovind explored the possibility of something called one nation, one election in India. And ever since this thing has come out in public, political parties all across the country have been fuming with anger. Rahul Gandhi is calling it an attack on the Indian Union, Kejriwal has bashed this move, and even the DMK has been opposing this idea. And while all of this has been happening, Amit Shah has been named as one of the panel members to work on this One Nation, One Election initiative. So with the general elections of 2024 closer than ever, on one side while it is being hailed as a revolutionary policy, on the other side it is being criticized as the abuse of power and a BJP's secret instrument to win the 2024 elections. And as usual, our media channels have been debating on useless matters instead of actually explaining the logic of the subject. So in this episode today, let's cut through the bullshit and try to understand what is this One Nation, One Election initiative all about, why is it considered to be a revolutionary concept by some parties, why is it considered to be a terrible concept by other parties, and most importantly, for this video, we are using the discussion paper by former members of the Niti Aayog, who are Kishore Desai and Bibek Debroy. And now, Bibek is the chairman of the Economic Advisory to the Prime Minister himself. So after watching this video, do find the paper from the link in the description. So if you're ready, let's dive in. So as usual, let's start from the basics and try to understand what exactly is the meaning of one nation, one election. People, in simple words, if you look at the existing system, elections to the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies are held separately. This is because they are held when their respective 5-year terms come to an end, and these term and years do not coincide with each other. So elections are held in different states in different times. But the One Nation, One Election proposal suggests that these elections must be held simultaneously, whereby the voters would cast their votes for both their state representatives and their national representatives at the same time. Basically, all the state elections and Lok Sabha elections must be held at the same time. And this is not a new thing at all. In fact, after the adoption of the constitution, the elections to the Lok Sabha and all state legislative assemblies were held simultaneously from 1951 till 1967. But from 1967 onwards, India saw a lot of political turmoil. For example, in 1967 elections, the Congress party lost control in several states like Bihar, Punjab and Uttar Pradesh. These states either saw non-Congress parties or coalitions coming to power. Then in 1968, President's rule was imposed in Uttar Pradesh just 1 year after the state elections. And in 1971, the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi called for early general elections, which were originally scheduled to be held in 1972. This again led to a delinking of the general election schedule from the state elections schedule. So one nation, one election is not a new concept. It naturally got disrupted due to political instability. So now the question over here is, why does this government want to apply one nation, one election strategy again? And what is so amazing about holding elections of state and central together? Well, as it turns out, there are several benefits to holding all the elections together. The first benefit is that India will overcome the inefficiency of Model Code of Conduct mode. For those who don't know, the Model Code of Conduct is a set of guidelines which are issued by the Election Commission of India, and they are used to regulate the political parties and candidates prior to the elections. So it says that from the day that the date of elections are announced till the entire process of election is complete, except for the routine administrative activities, any other development program, welfare scheme or capital project shall be suspended. Similarly, when the state elections are held, the state government cannot start or announce any giant project even if they are super important for the state's economy. For example, in the 2019 general elections, the Model Code of Conduct came into effect from March 10th when the election dates were announced till May 23rd when the final election results were declared. So during these 2.5 months, the centre could not initiate any new highway project, welfare scheme, and they could not initiate any new healthcare scheme all across the country. In Karnataka State Assembly elections, the model code of conduct was in effect from 29th of March 2023 to 13th of May 2023. On top of that, if the centre specially has something to initiate for the state, even that is not allowed during the code of conduct time span. So do you see what's happening over here? For 2.5 months, the centre could not initiate anything, and for 1.5 months, the state could not initiate anything. So effectively, for 4 months, the government is simply not functioning to initiate any new projects at all. This is because the Election Commission of India believes that if these parties are allowed to make grand announcement just before elections, these parties, both at the centre and state, might use these announcement to lure the voters to vote for their parties. So that is the reason why the Election Commission of India is very strict about not initiating any new projects during this tenure. And you know what, guys? Because of this reason, in the year 2014, governance and development activities remained suspended for 7 months. 3 months across the country, about 2 months in Jharkhand and J&K, and another 2 months in Maharashtra and Haryana. This is the first problem that one nation, one election will help to solve, by which the development of the country will not be hindered due to model code of conduct. The second challenge that it is expected to help us overcome is the insane amount of election expenditure. Did you know that the 2019 elections alone costed us 60,000 crores in total? And you will be stunned to know that it was the world's most expensive election. And this number is increasing at an alarming rate. If you see this graph, in 2009, parliamentary elections costed 1,115 crores. But by 2014, this number jumped up by 3 times to 3,870 crores. And it's not just the election commission, but even the candidates spent a lot of money in their campaigns. According to official figures, parties spent 1,587 crores in campaigning. But unofficially, this number is estimated to be around 30,000 crores. And just after the 2014 parliamentary elections, many state elections were conducted, which again costed us very heavily. For example, Maharashtra's election in 2014 costed us 793 crores, J&K's election costed us 110 crores, Bihar's 2015 election costed us 300 crores, and Gujarat's 2017 election costed us 240 crores. So add this up to the Lok Sabha election cost and you will see that the bill comes to 3,870 crores. So between 2014 to 2017 alone, with the existing calculation that we have, the government has spent a total of 5,313 crores in just conducting elections. And by the way, I'm not even taking into consideration the amount of money spent in other states like Tamil Nadu, West Bengal, Haryana, Assam and Jharkhand, where the state assembly elections were happened during the same time. And because we don't have the stats, we can't add them to the number. But the point to be noted over here is that elections are very, very costly. And you know what, guys? According to this discussion paper, if only all these state assembly elections and parliamentary elections were held together, it would have costed us just 4,500 crores. Which means we would have easily saved at least 2,000 crores in election expenses. On top of that, there are also other losses that come along with the election process. For example, every time elections are held, we need to set up polling stations, security arrangements and logistics cost 2 times. One for the general election and one for the state elections. So instead of deploying polling booths, electronic voting machines and security personnel for state election and then again for the national election, if everything could be deployed once, it will cut down the cost by a large extent. And lastly, one of the most underrated costs that we ignore is something called governance downtime. In simple words, the time that the government officials spend on election duty is the time that they will not spend on governance. For example, civil servants are often pulled away from their regular duties to oversee election logistics. But with one nation, one election, such important people can actually spend months of their time into actual governance than just election duty. And cherry on the cake, even the politicians will save a lot of money because they just have to campaign once in a particular state if one nation, one election is executed. This is the second benefit of one nation, one election, which is a drastic decrease in both direct and indirect cost. And the last benefit is the improved security of our country. Now the question over here is, what is the connection between election and the security of India? Well, as it turns out, the Election Commission mobilizes roughly 10 million people to ensure a smooth electoral process all across the country. And this includes nearly 1 million polling stations. So just like downtime governance, when the forces are deployed for election duty for 4 months, their primary duty gets compromised. So now the question is, if one nation, one election is such an amazing concept, then why are these political parties opposing it? Is it just propaganda, or do they have some merit to their argument? Well, as it turns out, some studies state that with one nation, one election, there is a chance that the top party is more likely to win. Sounds crazy, isn't it? So that's why we looked into some stat and we found a study in 2015 by the IDFC Institute that showed that if elections occur together, there is a 77% chance that the top party will rule both the state and the country. But if these elections happen 6 months apart, this percentage drops to 61%. Now the question over here is, why will there be a sudden change in their choices within just 6 months? Well, as it turns out, sometimes voters have second thoughts, sometimes they regret their first choice, or sometimes they are not as impressed by the party as they were right before the elections. Let's take Bihar as an example. In 2014, 41% of Bihar voted for BJP for the parliament. But fast forward to 2015, for the state elections, that number fell down to just 36%. So do you see this? If both these elections had happened at the same time, there was a very high chance, based on this 2014 data, that BJP might have kept that 5% vote, or perhaps they would have even won the state assembly elections. Secondly, it is said that with simultaneous elections, national issues might overshadow the local issues, and eventually the national parties will benefit, whereas the smaller regional parties might struggle to get their voice heard. Thirdly, in a staggered election system, the politicians are constantly under the scanner. So after they get elected at the center, if the party does something bad, they know that they will lose votes in the state elections. So when elections are always around, it creates a consistent pressure to keep the politicians in check and makes them more responsive to the problems of the nation. For example, the general elections were first held in 2014 and then in 2019. But in between this time span, several state elections happened, like elections in Maharashtra and Haryana happened in October 2014, Jammu and Kashmir in November 2014 and Jharkhand in January 2015. So even between both these general elections, the government was constantly under the pressure to perform well so that they can win the elections in all these states. But at the same time, if these elections are held only once in 5 years, the argument says that it will make the government complacent and it will ease the pressure of the politicians to be more responsible. And lastly, executing the one nation, one election policy is going to be a very, very tough challenge. Why? Because number one, all the government tenures will have to be regulated for this term. For example, if this policy had been used in 2019 elections, Tamil Nadu, Assam and Kerala would have to cut short their terms by 2 years, whereas Goa, Uttarakhand and Uttar Pradesh would have to extend their terms by 2 years. And this would be unacceptable by most parties. And even after its implementation, if again one of these state parties fall, or if the government at the center is dissolved, then again the whole schedule will go out of sync. So this is the dark side of the one nation, one election move. And now it's completely up to you to decide whether this is good or bad. That's all from my side for today, guys. I have attached all the study materials in the description. Do read through them and frame an opinion of your own. If you learned something valuable, please make sure to hit the like button in order to make YouTube Baba happy. And for more such insightful business and political case studies, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.